Good morning and welcome to the San Francisco Interfaith Council online briefing for faith leaders. Today's program hosts a public forum on phase 2 of the Sfmta'S Geary Boulevard Improvement Project. A special thanks, the San Francisco Interfaith Council online briefings are supported by a grant from MetaFund. Thank you. The important and ongoing work of the San Francisco Interfaith Council would not be possible without generous funding from congregations, corporations, faith-based social service agencies, foundations, judicatories, and supporters like you. Help us spread the word. Visit sfinterfaithcouncil.org to learn about SFIC programming and how to become a supporter. Follow SFIC on Facebook and Twitter, and subscribe to SFIC's YouTube channel to watch all of our previous virtual events.
Go quickly.
A bit of housekeeping. Today's program is being recorded. For audio and video, all participants are muted and without video to minimize distraction. To submit a question or comment, select the chat button at the bottom of your screen and send a message to Q&A. To activate closed captions, select the live transcript button at the bottom of your screen and click Enable Live Transcription. As COVID-19 case rates remain relatively low, but slowly increase, now is the ideal time for San Franciscans to prepare for changes in the virus by taking basic actions that can protect themselves, their families, and their community. The San Francisco Department of Public Health urges people to be ready for COVID by staying up to date on their vaccinations, knowing how to reach a doctor, keeping a supply of rapid COVID-19 over-the-counter antigen tests, keeping masks handy, and staying informed with trusted sources of information such as sf.gov/COVID. With changes in federal, state, and city masking guidelines, it can be difficult to know when to mask. The best advice is to bring a mask with you everywhere you go, as you may be required by the organization, business, or transportation agency to wear one. Plus, many people are still wearing masks for their health choices. The vaccines are safe and effective. Go to sf.gov to find a vaccine site or vaccine event in your neighborhood. Now is the time to come together, San Francisco. Together we can stop Asian discrimination, bias, hate, and violence. The COVID-19 virus has no race or nationality. It is simply a disease. To report a hate crime, call the SFPD at 415-553-1133. And at this time, I'd like to hand the floor over to the Executive Director of the San Francisco Interfaith Council, Michael Pappas. Michael, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Trey, and thank you for all of your assistance. Once again, good morning. I am Michael Pappas, and on behalf of the San Francisco Interfaith Council, I want to welcome you to this week's online briefing for faith leaders. On average, one person walking along Geary Boulevard in San Francisco's Richmond district is injured in a traffic collision once every month. Likewise, as riders will attest, the neighborhood's 38 Geary bus service can be overcrowded and unreliable. The San Francisco Municipal Transit Agency's Geary Boulevard Improvement Project, the second phase of the Geary Bus Rapid Transit, proposes safety and transit reliability improvements between 34th Avenue and Stanyan Street. While originally envisioned with center-running bus lanes, the Sfmta'S has evaluated recently completed improvements from the first phase of the project, listened to feedback received from the public, and is now proposing side-running bus lanes adjacent to parallel parking. The project is currently in its second round of public outreach to seek feedback on specific detailed design items. This week's online briefing for faith leaders, hosted by the San Francisco Interfaith Council, will provide an overview of the project's proposals, details on next steps, and an occasion for the public to pose questions and offer feedback. Without further ado, it is my great privilege and pleasure to welcome the chairman of the board of the San Francisco Interfaith Council, Nancy Nielsen, to offer a brief welcome and the reading of the interfaith statement. Nancy, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mike. It is indeed my pleasure and honor to be here on behalf of this amazing board. At every gathering, we read our statement to remind us of our purpose and who we strive to be. Community. Whatever our individual belief, it can be freely expressed here with no apologies. If we are invited to offer a prayer in this setting, it should be offered according to the tradition with which we identify. If we are invited to speak on a subject from the perspective of our tradition, we are free to do so without fear of offending those who come from another tradition. We come together as people of faith to learn from each other that we might better understand the multiplicity of faith traditions in our city and in our world. Welcome.
Thank you so very much, Nancy. It is a joy to have with us the pastor of Most Holy Redeemer Catholic Church and board member of the San Francisco Interfaith Council, my friend and colleague, Matt Link, to ground us in a reflective moment for today's discussion. Father Matt, it's great to see you. And I know you came right from Mass, so we are appreciative. We ask you to keep the prayers flowing.
Good morning, Michael. Thank you so much, Nancy. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It is truly an honor and a privilege and a blessing to serve on this esteemed board and council. I am forever thankful, and yes, I do, in all sincerity, keep the prayers. I keep those prayers coming, and we, as a little congregation, a little faith community, we prayed this morning for us, for the work of the San Francisco Interfaith Council. Most Holy Redeemer, it's such an interesting and beautiful place to serve. I'm a missionary of the Precious Blood, a very small religious congregation founded in Rome in the early 19th century. I've been serving here at Most Holy Redeemer, MHR, for the past 8 years, and we're located in the Castro district. And MHR is this inclusive, loving community. We do work. We strive to welcome people regardless of sexual orientation, regardless of gender identity, regardless of background, regardless of faith tradition. Our parish strives to bring people out of isolation and into community. We strive to bring people from indifference into a place of concern. We strive people to step outside of themselves and into service, to step out of and away from fear in the midst of adversity into faith and hope in God. So this little parish we were founded in 1900. And the parish has always, from day one in our history, has tried to be present, a community actively loving God and loving our neighbor. And in the early 1980s, the community began to change. The school closed, the parish convent closed. And the mission and the life of the parish was experiencing significant change along with our city and our community. And the history of MHR and the history of our relationship with our local community, especially here in the Castro with the LGBTQ plus community, the history and the relationship, it found its origins in the midst of the HIV/AIDS crisis. The parish opened her doors and ministered to this suffering community. Our story has been chronicled in the book written by Jesuit Father Donald Godfrey, The Gays and the Grays, the story of the gay community at Most Holy Redeemer Catholic Parish. And then more recently in Michael O'Loughlin's book, Hidden Mercy, AIDS, Catholics, and the untold stories of compassion in the face of fear. In fact, it was this welcome, this parish mission, that majority of the community got behind, this welcome of all people into the life of the parish, which truly helped revitalize a community that was seemingly experiencing a death herself. This welcome revitalized our community to a vibrant space of love and devotion, a place where all people could feel safe, where all could feel welcome, where all could experience God's inclusive love. And since that time, we have been proud to offer a welcoming, diverse, intergenerational community at MHR where LGBTQ plus people, where all people can engage in prayer, in fellowship, and in meaningful service. To fulfill our mission, MHR offers many significant ministries for her parishioners, including HIV/AIDS support groups, young adults group, centering prayer group, women's spirituality, Wednesday night suppers, and other ministries of outreach to our friends and neighbors experiencing challenges with housing and food insecurity, as well as many other opportunities to engage in beautiful liturgies, in service, and in outreach. And we, as a faith family, we engage in our local community through the San Francisco Pride March, through the Castro Street Fair, through other opportunities to reach out and to be a good neighbor. So rushing hither and yon as and sometimes the dangers of such a fast pace of life reminds us in our faith to pause, to slow down, to be still and know that I am God, as scripture tells us. At a time when division and strife seem to be everywhere, we as a faith family, we do the work. All of us as people of faith and hope and love, we do the work to be instruments of unity and peace. And my friends, I invite you, if you are living in or visiting San Francisco, stop by Most Holy Redeemer, right there in the heart of the Castro. Most Holy Redeemer, truly, we strive to be a home for all. Stop by on a Wednesday night, come by around 5 o'clock for dinner, and experience a lovingly home-cooked meal. Stop by for the 10 o'clock Mass on a Sunday morning. God's inclusive love is proclaimed here, and truly, truly all are welcome. So thank you for this moment. And again, I assure you my continual prayers. St. Paul says, pray always. And I truly do always hold the work and the mission, the ministry of the Interfaith Council in my heart and in my prayers. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you, Father. And thank you for your leadership at Most Holy Redeemer, that jewel in our city. You gave such a beautiful overview of all of the ministries. What impressed me when I go to worship there is the music. It really is uplifting, and it's a reminder I've got to come back soon and pray with you all. God bless you, and thank you.
Thank you.
Never when I began my service to the San Francisco Interfaith Council 15 years ago did I think I'd be spending so much time on parking and transit matters. And yet those issues have become really important because they impact the lives of worshiping communities and religious institutions in San Francisco. The working relationship the Interfaith Council has with the San Francisco Municipal Transit Agency is an important one, and we try to be proactive in our partnership and collaboration so that we can engage communities of faith in whatever policy changes the MTA is making. Today is no different. At the request of the agency, we are having this public forum, and it is just that, it is a public forum. Our featured presenter, Dan Mikowski, who's a project manager for the San Francisco Municipal Transit Agency, will be addressing you. But what we are really looking for today is for your input. At the conclusion of Dan's presentation, I will be posing questions to him. And I would encourage you, as you hear his presentation, if there are things that you'd like to know or you'd like to posit, especially if you're residents of the Richmond district or traveling through the Richmond district on Geary Boulevard, all is fair and game. And so please don't hesitate. We'll make sure those questions are posed to him. But without further ado, Dan, thank you for taking the time to be with us today. And I'm going to hand the floor over to you. I know that this is phase 2, and so this is a really important time for you to be gathering information, and we want to give you that venue and forum.
Yes, thank you, Michael. And thank you, Father Matt, for the prayers before. So let me share my screen and get started. Okay, are you able to see the screen?
We are.
Excellent. Okay, so hi everyone, I'm Dan Mikowski. I'm a project manager at Sfmta, and I am the acting project manager on the Geary Boulevard Improvement Project, as well as the project engineer. My colleague Liz Bryson is the project manager, and she's out on parental leave at the moment. And so this, thank you for this opportunity to get your feedback. I'd like to provide a quick overview of the project, an update on where we're at, and then spend some time hearing and responding to questions. So here we go. So the Geary corridor is very busy. I think that's probably well known by everyone here. Before COVID, there was about 56,000 people riding the bus along Geary every day, and about 40,000 cars on Geary. So every day there's easily 100,000 people traveling on Geary. It's a busy corridor to connect hospitals, schools, parks, businesses, and of course faith organizations. And it runs all the way from the beach to downtown. The project goals of MTA's project are two. First, to improve transit speed and reliability with a focus on reliability. This is often experienced by customers as evenly spaced buses. Right now, sometimes you might see two buses come in a row and then a big gap between buses, and this can lead to long wait times and unpredictable ride times and crowding. The transit reliability is crucial to running our system smoothly. Right now, it takes almost 45 minutes for someone to go from outer Richmond to get downtown, while it's only about 20 minutes via driving. So there's a lot of work to do, and improving reliability by minimizing unpredictable delays along the bus service can make customers can make meeting more attractive to customers. Instead of having to plan for that 45-minute trip, they can plan for a more reliable, shorter trip in the future. The second goal of the project is improved safety and accessibility for people walking. Geary has the unfortunate designation on the high injury court network, which is where a disproportionate amount of traffic collisions occur. As you can see from the map, the almost entire Geary corridor is on this network. And as Michael said in the introduction, on average, one person is hit and injured by a vehicle each month currently. And so that's a problem that we are trying to address. The other half of this goal is accessibility. There's a lot of elder and people with disabilities along the Geary corridor, and we need infrastructure in place for them to be able to travel safely. So an overview on the project. Geary Bus Rapid Transit Project has been around for many years. MTA is delivering this project in two phases. The first phase of the project was called the Geary Rapid Project, and that was the eastern half of the corridor, shown in red on this map, between Market and Stanyan Streets. That project is substantially complete, on time and on budget. Last year was completed, and that included side running bus lanes, which we'll talk about a little bit more in a minute. Today, we're here to talk about the second phase of the project, called the Geary Boulevard Improvement Project, and that is in the Richmond district between Stanyan Street and 34th Avenue, shown in blue on this map. So I mentioned that the project has been around for many years. Previously, the phase 2 part of the project was envisioned as a center running busway between Arguello and 28th Avenue, very similar to the Van Ness improvement project that was recently opened for revenue service. That would have installed bus lanes and medians with bus lanes in the middle, and 2 lanes of general traffic and parallel parking through this part of the corridor. It would have, because there's 38R Geary Rapid and 38 local service, this would have required consolidating the bus stops so that the local stops would be farther apart and the rapid stops would be closer together. And it would have required more significant construction and funding. So given the evaluation of the first phase of the project, which included side running bus lanes, MTA has proposed to change that overall conceptual design to side running bus lanes in the Richmond district. This can allow faster and less disruptive construction at a lower cost while maintaining most of the transit and safety benefits planned. It also allows retention of the 38R rapid and local service. In a cross section of that proposal is shown at the bottom with parallel parking, a bus lane next to the parallel parking, and 2 general traffic lanes. And the median with trees would remain in the center of the street. So moving on, last fall, MTA did outreach on this proposed change in the concept to Richmond district businesses and residents. And the results were strongly in favor of pursuing the side running transit lane alternative. We also heard about people's priorities for the project, and those were also strongly in favor of the improving 38 Geary travel time and reliability and improving traffic safety. So that was last fall, and that helped provide MTA with details to develop a detailed project drawings on a block by block basis. And so I'll go over those proposals quickly, and the detailed drawings are available online at sfmta.com/improvegeary. So looking at the proposed bus stop changes, the bus stops would largely remain the same as they are today, but they would be relocated slightly to improve transit reliability. Most of the bus stops are currently what we call near side, before the traffic signal. So they stop sometimes when the light is green, they're stopped. And then by the time they're done boarding, the light might turn red and then they have to sit there. They also have short bus zones currently, and the bus often has to be pull over at an angle, which it makes it difficult for customers to get on and off the bus. They have to step down on the curb and back up. And so the project proposes to move the bus stops to the far side of the intersection past the traffic signal. And this also allows the buses to communicate with the traffic signal to extend the green light if necessary through what's called transit signal priority system. And so that further allows the buses to minimize their delay at traffic signals. And then, and as a bonus, it also, the far side location eliminates the vehicles turning right in front of a bus, called the right hook conflict. So that's the proposal for most of the stops shown in this map. At the 38R Geary Rapid stops, the bus stops would have what's called a bulbout. It's a sidewalk extension, and similar to what was piloted out there at 25th, 20th, and 6th Avenues. There's temporary wooden platforms in place. The proposal for the Geary Rapid stops shown in red on this map would be to install permanent concrete sidewalk extensions. That gives more people more room to wait at the bus, and it also allows the bus to pull straight into the stop so that they can be lined up with the curb. So that's an overview of the bus stop changes. There's also a proposal to remove the 12th Avenue bus stops, given the close spacing to Park Presidio and 9th Avenue. And I should reiterate at this time that these are the current proposals, and we are still in the outreach phase and here to get input. We're planning, and we would, after getting input, we would finalize the design and take it to the board for their consideration. So that's why I keep saying proposals. Okay, that's an overview of the bus stop changes. Moving on to proposed safety and transit improvements. Some additional transit improvements proposed are installing the side running bus lanes where they aren't currently, which is between 15th and 28th Avenue. Currently, there's angled parking along Geary in that area. The proposal would convert the angled parking to parallel parking to make room for the side running bus lanes. That removes 1 to 2 parking spots per block on average, but each block is a little different given the bus stop changes. And that would install continuous side running bus lanes between 33rd Avenue and all the way down to Market Street. And so that the transit lanes can help reduce unpredictable delays, like buses getting caught in traffic and such. Other safety improvements are pedestrian bulbouts, which are sidewalk extensions at intersection corners. This can help reduce the distance to cross Geary. Geary is very wide, and people need time to cross the wide street. And it can also help improve pedestrian visibility and reduce the speed of turning vehicles so pedestrians are safer. Other safety improvements proposed are some left turn restrictions at select movements. And so these are to improve pedestrian safety. MTA did a collision analysis of the last 10 years of data and found 3 primary collision patterns along Geary. One of them is speeding, but the others are turning left onto Geary from the north and south streets, from the avenues. And the other is turning left off of Geary onto the avenues. And a tool to improve the safety for vehicles turning off of Geary is these left turn restrictions. They very similar treatment, or the same treatment was done at 3rd Avenue and 7th Avenue in 2013, where there was a high number of collisions related to left turns. And the result since those restrictions were in place is that there have been no more pedestrian collisions related to left turns since then. And there's been much fewer vehicle to vehicle collisions as well. So those are promising results, and we propose to replicate that at certain areas along the corridor shown as the red arrows on the map. There would still be left turn opportunities at each of these couplets to allow traffic circulation. Okay, so I think that covers this map in the proposals. Okay, just a quick overview. So we did just do a large round of public outreach in March and the beginning of April. That was to share these block by block detailed project drawings. As I mentioned, they're available online, and we'd encourage you to look at them, especially on your specific block where your facility may be. So we sought feedback via a short survey, which was online in print in Russian, Chinese, and English. This was advertised by posters, door-to-door merchant visits, mailers to residents and businesses within 2 blocks, emails, including to business and community organizations, and then also geo-targeted Facebook and Spotify ads and local newspaper ads in Qingdao and Richmond Review. We also hosted some events, including a pop-up event shown in the photo here, talking to people in the neighborhood. There's some residents and business owners in this photo. We also had virtual office hours. The supervisor and our MTA director had a corridor walkthrough to speak with some stakeholders along the corridor. And then there was a self-guided open house at 1 Richmond office, which is 9th and Clement, the Richmond Senior Center at 26 Ave, Holy Virgin Cathedral, and Joe's Ice Cream. So we've done a lot of direct outreach to the residents and businesses on the corridor, but we are thankful for this opportunity to speak to SFIC and your members to get further feedback from you, especially if you're near the Geary corridor. And so we received quite a bit of feedback via the surveys, and our team is working to type up those responses and then do the analysis. So that's not done yet, but we do have some preliminary feedback that I could share quickly here. There is support for the proposed safety and transit improvements. We did hear strong concern about parking loss from the angle to parallel conversion, and several of those comments were specifically focused on parking loss west of 25th Avenue. We had mixed reactions. I haven't talked about this proposal yet, but I will soon, to some of the parking policy proposals. We had some questions about the left turn restrictions, especially near the 23rd Avenue slow street. Some people preferred the previous center running design due to greater protection from cars. There's some concern about construction impacts being similar to the recently completed Van Ness Avenue project. There's some desire for Geary rail investment, and I can touch on that at the end of the presentation. We had some questions about impacts to shared space structures. Those are the parklets, typically for restaurants along the corridor. There's a few of those would be impacted by the project, but the project would help pay for any required modifications of any direct impact. And then some people just want to see implementation ASAP and are tired of providing input. As I mentioned, the project's been around for many years. But that said, we want input, and that's where we are in the process. So given that this initial feedback, kind of the two things I wanted to go into a little bit more detail about was parking and business support. And so because those are some concerns we've heard and some questions that you might have. So given what we've heard about parking, our Geary team has been working with MTA's parking and curb management team. This team is responsible for a lot of things in the agency, kind of shown on here, including parking meter policy and corridor curb planning. And so just to kind of set the stage on the proposed changes, so the project is on Geary from 34th Avenue to Stanyan. Within 1 block of that project area, there are about 4,180 public parking spaces currently. The old center running design proposed to remove about 60 of those 4,000 parking spaces. There was another side running alternative in the old environmental document, and that proposed removing 140 parking spaces of those 4,000. And MTA has worked to adjust that side running alternative from the environmental to the current proposal to reduce the parking impact along the corridor to about 40 spaces total of the 4,000. That said, the exact location where those 40 spaces are proposed to be removed is not completely uniform, and some blocks are impacted more than others. And again, that's what we want your feedback about. And so just a kind of summary, the parking lot is concentrated between 24th and 16th Avenues, where the on-street supply would be reduced by 17 spaces, which is about 10% if you only consider the 174 space supply on Geary, not looking at the side streets. I guess the next bullet point is a reminder that there's public off-street parking lots in the central Richmond. These have a supply of about 143 spaces. So that's at 18th Ave, 17th at the mall, 21st Ave. And the pre-pandemic data shows that there's typically over 24 spaces available in those off-street lots. And then given the concerns we heard about parking west of 25th Avenue, the net parking loss west of 25th Avenue is 4 spaces less after side street additions, which we'll talk about next. So that's just to kind of give an overview of the proposed changes. And so given what we've heard about the concerns to parking changes, we have 3 tools to respond to those. The first is addition of parking on some side streets by converting some of the parallel spaces on the side street to angled. And so this map below shows the locations where that's proposed. It's only feasible at locations with long stretches of no driveways. And so there's one on 29th Avenue near Presidio Middle School, 26th Avenue near Holy Virgin, 23rd and 24th near St. Monica's, 19th, 18th, and 17th Avenue, close to some businesses, and near Park Presidio on 14th at Funston. So that can help add some spaces back on the side streets. It's a few spaces at each of those locations. The second tool that MTA is using is curb management. And so that is a new color curb plan to ensure the most efficient use of the remaining curb space. So that's looking at the needs of the merchants. So we did a survey last year to ask merchants how they get their deliveries, be it commercial or passenger, where they're loading, when they're loading, what trucks they use, and use that information to put commercial loading or passenger loading zones where they're needed, and consolidate them to ensure that we're using the space efficiently so that the rest of the space can be used for parking. So that's the curb management side. And then the third tool currently proposed and that we're seeking feedback on is extended metering on Geary, so not on the side streets, on Geary Boulevard between 14th and 28th Avenues in central Richmond. And so parking meters are a tool to help businesses and help with parking availability by increasing turnover. And so given the concerns we heard about parking availability, we're proposing to extend the parking meter hours to better line up with when businesses are open. The parking meters currently run from Monday through Saturday between 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. But a lot of businesses, especially restaurants in this area, are open after 6 p.m. And they're open on Sundays. And so to help with availability, the current proposal includes adding metering during those evening hours from 6 to 10 p.m. on Monday through Saturday, and on Sundays from noon to 6 p.m. During those times, there'd be no time limit. So people could park at 6 p.m. On a Monday and stay there until 9 a.m. The next day if they wanted to. So it might help them with availability. Similarly, on Sunday, people could use the pay by phone capabilities of the meters to park somewhere Sunday morning, and then while they're out and about, pay for noon to 1 p.m. Of parking if they wanted to. So that's the proposal. We're looking for feedback, especially on the exact hours, like maybe 10 p.m. is too late. Maybe the hours on Sunday could be changed or anything. So those are the proposals. A little bit more about the extended meters. We kind of already talked about how they are proposed to help businesses and can result in higher turnover and utilize space more efficiently. I think one of the stats we have is that unmetered space can support about 7 cars per day, while a metered space can support around 12 cars per day. So you're able to get more people visiting the corridor and more business activity. A survey has found that people don't like to pay for parking, but more so they hate to look for parking. So meters are a tool that could help with that. And then this extended meters does exist in other parts of San Francisco, California, and the US, kind of on this list shown here. So other parking management tools that MTA is looking into, given what we've heard so far, are residential permit parking. So that currently ends at 15th Avenue. And so I'm going to work with our parking team to see if there's been requests for expanding this area and what any next steps may be. Another thing we heard was concern about employee parking. And so there are options for employers to help pay for their employees' parking if they wish to. That could also work for congregations and their parishioners. Using the pay by phone business application, the employee can give their license plate and the employer can help pay for part or all of it. There's also parking card options. Though those will be phased out eventually. Another tool is Carpool Facilitation. There's 3 services available on 511.org/carpool that can help people, either employees or faith members to find each other and know the time and place that they're coming from and going to coordinate carpools if they wish to. So that's Merge, Scoop, and Waze. Another tool we're looking into is the standardization of the length of the shared space parklets. Some of those can be long right now and take up more parking spaces. There's a permanent shared space program going into effect next year, and that would require all the spaces to be either 1 or 2 parking spaces long. So that could help return some parking spaces. Another tool we're looking into is an investigation if one of the Bay Area bike share stations could be shifted onto the sidewalk. So that has some technical constraints that our team will work with Bay Area bike share on. And then the last thing on this list is the lighting at 21st and Geary parking lot could perhaps be improved for security. So that was the parking, what we're trying to do to address parking concerns. And like I said, want to hear more feedback from you, especially on the extended meter hours. The next thing we've heard a lot about is what MTA can do for business support during construction. A lot of those questions come from articles about Van Ness Avenue. And so in the first phase of the project, the Geary Rapid Project, we had a successful business support and marketing program. We worked directly with the 4 CBDs along the corridor. So that's Japantown, the Fillmore, Tenderloin, and Union Square. And we were able to help support them and drive business activity in their neighborhoods and commercial areas. And so examples of this were wayfinding signage. So this is an example from Japantown to help guide people to businesses, and others on bus or in-bus advertising. Another example is business directories. So we work with each organization to customize a package for them. And we could do something similar for the phase 2 project. So and I think I'm going to try and wrap up here. So just a overview of where we're at schedule wise and the next steps. I mentioned the first round of outreach that was done in the fall. That was for input on bus stop changes, transit lanes, parking, load and safety issues, mostly to hear about priorities and the side running alternative. And that feedback was used to develop the detailed proposal, which we just went over. We're currently in the second round of outreach. That's spring, this spring. That's input on the draft block by block design and the parking policy proposal that we just went over. We are looking to take this to the board in the fall, but we're getting feedback now, and we'll take time to hear that feedback, review the feedback, make recommended changes, and then finalize it for the board's consideration. If approved, then we could do a quick build implementation of the transit lanes, bus stop relocations, and other safety improvements as soon as the end of this year. But again, it depends on the board schedule. And then in parallel with the quick build, we could begin detailed design, and the implementation would occur over about 2 years, depending on the scope added by partner agencies, such as water, sewer, and paving. We'd want to coordinate any work to minimize the disruptions to the community. So that's where we're at. That's what the schedule would be. And then just since we get a lot of questions about rail on Geary, just a quick update. The San Francisco Transit Investment Strategy does prioritize rail expansion. That's the Connect SF Transit Investment Strategy. And it calls for an investment in Geary 19th Ave subway. The exact alignment is not set at this time, so we don't know exactly where the stations would be. These proposed bus improvements, part of phase 2, would complement any investment, providing benefits sooner and at a low cost. Since the subway alignment is not set, though it's not set, it's not expected to serve the whole corridor. So there's still a need for transit from the beach to the inner Richmond, regardless. So the buses would still continue to be important. And that's the last slide. So now I'm here. So thank you again for the opportunity, and I'm here to answer questions and hear your feedback. I'm taking notes, and my colleague Jay is also taking notes.
Thank you so very much, Dan. This was a very comprehensive presentation. And I just would like to acknowledge one of the attendees today, Tom Nolan, who for many, many years was the chairman of the board of directors of the MTA. When we first began with this issue of Sunday metered parking back in 2012, I think through 2014, one of the greatest objections that the communities of faith had was that they were not engaged in the process. Thanks to Tom, we've really created this unique collaboration between the council and the agency. And so want to say thank you. I know that this conversation of extended meter parking was happening prior to the pandemic. I think the pandemic exacerbated it because of the revenue losses. In speaking with Director Tumlin, I know the points he made, and on behalf of the congregations, was the fact that a lot of people park overnight, and he wanted to free up those spaces, and that wouldn't start the meters until noon, and you could prepay. So these are conversations, but these extended hours are not going to be just for the Geary corridor. They're going to be throughout the city. Do you know when that will start?
So to clear that is the overall citywide that you just described. But as part of this project, we are just proposing on Geary at this time. If the citywide were implemented, then this would just be folded into it. And so I don't know the answer for when the citywide would happen. My understanding is next year would be the earliest, but I would need to follow up on that. As part of this project, it would just be looking at on Geary from 14th to 28th Avenue, in response to feedback we've heard about this project specifically.
Yeah, you mentioned a couple of congregations. Off the top of my head, I was thinking Holy Virgin, Star of the Sea, Park Presidio, and then there are some off, about a block or two away, like Beth Shalom, Zion Lutheran, Congregation Emmanuel, and St. John's Presbyterian. In your outreach, what are you hearing from them?
It varies because the size and location of each, and what facilities they have. For example, St. Monica's is able to handle all of their parking on site. They have a large parking lot. You enter on 24th Ave. and exit on 23rd. So they are not too concerned on what's on-street parking changes happening. But then other organizations, so like Holy Virgin has approved plans to build their own parking lot, 38 space parking lot, but that has not been constructed yet. That would help, but they're still concerned about on-street parking changes and are worried about any loss in parking. Their thoughts on the Sunday parking is that it seems like could be a useful tool, kind of what you mentioned on the hours not starting till noon and ability to prepay, and it could help deter some people from the overnight parking and free up spaces for the visitors. Other locations like Beth Shalom and Star of the Sea are kind of outside of the proposed changes, and so wouldn't necessarily be affected. Because the parking changes are concentrated between where the angled parking is between 14th and 20th Avenue. That's why we're only proposing the extended meters in that area. We don't want to create issues. We just want to address what we're hearing from the public. So yeah, at Star of the Sea at 8th Avenue, there's no, there's already a bus lane there. There's no real changes that would affect them.
I know that Geary Boulevard and Van Ness were parallel projects. Can you just explain how they're different and what you've learned from one another in the process?
Yes. So the Geary project that used to be Centerine was almost exactly like the Van Ness project that was recently completed, and that would have meant things probably would have went very similarly to Van Ness. That said, even though we're switching to side running, there still are a lot of lessons to be learned. One of the big ones was the outreach side. The Van Ness team helped develop our outreach program and a lot of the business support and marketing. So we use those tools on the first phase of the project on Geary, and we're planning to use those on the second phase as well. There's also the technical side, construction methods, construction bidding and award, relationships with contractors, staging. And so those ones, we also keep in touch with their team to ensure construction goes smoothly on our projects going forward. And so we actually used some of those lessons on phase 1 Geary, which we were able to complete on time and on budget, and other projects throughout the city, like 16th Street, Terraville, 19th Ave. So a lot of these lessons are already being put in place, but because, like you said, Van Ness and Geary were developed in parallel, there's kind of a special relationship between those two.
If and when this project is completed, it will be completed in our lifetime. Do you think that the use of, public transportation to and from the Richmond district will increase? And if so, why or why not?
Yeah, so our environmental document does look at projected ridership and does anticipate an increase in ridership, and a lot of that is due to the transit speed and reliability improvements, making the bus a more competitive mode of transportation. From my personal experience, I think the reliability is the key to, well, it needs to be accessible. We need bus stops where, in places where people want to go and can access. But beyond that, the reliability is really helpful because right now, if sometimes a trip is 20 minutes and sometimes it's 40 minutes, you have, if you need to be at work at 9 a.m., then you need to leave at 8:20 because you need to plan, allocate time for that 40-minute trip. But if we're able to make the bus reliable, then that means people can get 20 minutes back in their day. And so having these buses be reliable can really make transit an attractive mode to get to work, but also just to get around, do weekend trips. Like errands and stuff. There's just a ton of destinations on Geary, and I think in a lot of regional connections, we have BART. There's look at future downtown express service. There's a lot of other transit connections. So it's a place where people want to go. There's good businesses, restaurants, schools. I think the free Muni for youth helped. When I take the bus during school time, I'm packed in there with them. And so these are all, I think the reliability is the key to improving the ridership.
And I've been thinking about you all because I know the council's been engaged in this project and Van Ness for many years. And I've been wondering what impact COVID has had both on the process and on the project.
Yes. So I didn't discuss this too much in the presentation, but COVID did have a big impact on the project and the process. And so, like I mentioned, it was originally looked at as center running. Beyond just the first phase that was side running transit lanes that we evaluated and showed successful, there was a temporary emergency transit lanes project in the Richmond district itself that implemented side running bus lanes where there's already parallel parking. So it had no parking impact, but it did already install these side running bus lanes. That was back in 2021. And those also proved to be successful in terms of improving transit with minimal impacts on vehicle travel times and diversions. And so that helped provide more support for pursuing this side running design currently. It also changed the process in that we've had a lot more outreach, including this, that's virtual. And I think that helps some people. I think it makes it easier to get to meetings. It also hurts in that sometimes there's a value in standing next to someone and looking at something together. So we are still doing field visits, especially for larger organizations. I go and meet with them, and we look at it together in the field. And so if there's anyone on this call that wants to meet in person, I am happy to do that. And so that's kind of how it changed the process. We have innovative outreach techniques to help keep everyone safe, us and the public. And so there's self-guided open houses are one example where we worked with 4 different places to set up large project drawings and have surveys available in different languages so people can come in safely and look at them in person, especially if they don't have internet access. So yeah, it definitely had an impact on the proposal and the process.
You gave a very comprehensive presentation today. And I know that when we send the recording link out, that we are going to include a link so that there can be continued input by attendees, not only on this line, but who will receive the recording link. I have just one last question before we come to a close. And I know that you're immersed in this. And I guess the question I have for you is, what have you learned personally about the ridership being served in this process?
I think it's a bit related to COVID as well, but the ridership is extremely diverse, and there's a lot of essential workers that take the bus every day and rely on Muni to get them, to the hospital, to their school, to their business. And I think that really helps make my work important, our agency's work important. We want to serve everyone and anyone who needs to get around, but I think this is just such a busy line with a population that needs reliable transit. I take the bus a lot. I stand at bus stops a lot, and it's all walks of life that take the bus, and I think that's really special.
Thank you. I remember when we were doing some advocacy work on behalf of the congregations in the Dolores Guerrero region, especially during the conversation about median parking. And, we were very successful there in our advocacy work, but I remember in a debrief telling the congregation leaders, suggesting to them, I said, it's best that you become members of your neighborhood associations as well as your merchants associations, because you're both. And it's better to have those relationships in place so that when you need the support of neighbors and colleagues, that you've got them and you're not doing it at the moment that you need it, but those relationships are in place. And that's really what our organization is all about, is to cultivate those relationships. So I share that with everybody here today. Dan, I want to thank you in particular for your contribution today, your presentation. And it was very comprehensive. And again, the slide deck as well as the recording link and other links will be sent out by day's end today to give everybody an opportunity to continue to have some input. I also want to thank Father Matt Link and Nancy Nielsen for their contribution, as well as Cynthia Zambucas, the Administrative Program Associate, who is the unsung hero and doing all the work behind the scenes, along with Trey Russell Allen, our tech consultant, for making these possible. We would invite you to join us next Thursday. Next Thursday is May 19th at 8:30 a.m. when representatives of the California State Department of Health will present on the important issue of vaccine misinformation. So please plan on joining us next week, because I think that some of this information, especially the congregation leaders, will be helpful to share with your congregants and clients and religious organizations. Affiliated organizations. That brings to a close today, today's program. God bless you and God keep you.